I think I first learned about Washington University when the flyers came in the mail. The theme was something like, "Meet me in St. Louis," and it had a woman with a parasol on it and a riverboat. And at the time, believe it or not, St. Louis seemed quite exotic to a teenager from rural Connecticut. Sure, so in the spring of 1975, I had applied to a number of schools. I couldn't afford to go to any private school without help. I remember very distinctly that there were two letters that came from Washington University. One was the letter of acceptance, but more importantly was the letter giving me a $3,000 scholarship. And that really allowed me to go. I would not be here without that.
Joe Wayland majored in political science, joined ROTC, earned a law degree, and served as a captain in the Air Force. He credits his liberal arts education for preparing him for his legal career and for public service at the U.S. Department of Justice.
My art history professor was transformative. The study of Renaissance art in his class, it wasn't just about technique, but it was also about what one's place in the world might be. And so when we studied Rembrandt's portrait of St. Paul, Professor Smith wanted us to think about what was Rembrandt telling us about St. Paul as he struggled with establishing a church in a time of persecution. And when we looked at the work of a first century sculptor with a portrait of a Roman senator, it wasn't so much about the connection between the Roman art and the Greek art, but also about the problems of empire in a global world. Art in Professor Smith's class was about public responsibility and about whether one should measure life not just by one's physical place, but also one's moral place. I hoped at the time that I would be faced with those kinds of responsibilities at some point in my life and that I would be able to live up to them. The portrait of St. Paul actually hangs in the National Gallery. From time to time, I would walk over and I would look at it and be inspired and wonder whether I was living up to the ideals that Professor Smith had, but knowing at the very least that he had much to do with my desire to serve in public office.
Joe really impressed me with the work he did for about a decade on a law case that a group of families brought to try to make the state of New York improve the funding of education in the school system. The New York Times called it a landmark decision. Think about this, he's a really hotshot litigation lawyer at a big-time law firm, and he was willing to put this kind of effort into helping families make the school system better.
Joe is now Executive Vice President and General Counsel of Chubb, a global insurance company with offices in 54 countries. He is also deeply involved with an organization in New York City that runs 20 charter schools serving 7,000 children.
Most of our students go off to college and the test results are terrific, and we have an extremely excited and an idealistic group of young teachers. I'm quite excited about that work.
Now he's joined our board of trustees, and that takes time and energy and thought, and I think he's always been willing to put in that kind of effort. He's just a real asset to our university.
I feel very strongly about the place of universities in civilization. They are bastions of reason, rationality, pursuit of knowledge, pursuit of scientific advancement, and they're bulwarks against demagoguery, quackery of charlatans, and prejudice. And it's critical that those institutions survive and thrive. Universities are fragile in many ways. They require financial support, they require moral support, they require public support in the face of all sorts of attacks on them. So that's a multi-generational, multifaceted need that universities have. They aren't just the sum of the students and the faculty who are there in any one day, but they are institutions that live over generations. I'm quite honored and humbled by this award that comes from an institution that I feel deeply obligated to. And to the extent that the achievement reflects anything I've done, it all began here. My intellectual base is here, and everything that came after it is built on that. I've attended Washington University because of the generosity of others, and that's a promise from one generation to the next.